notice the third button, third bullet. Independent standards, there's regulatory standards, may not be correlated and the same as true independence. It might meet certain standards, but it still might not be really truly independent. I think that is part of that. That is also it's a real life issue. How independent can you be and be effective? You're not independent enough. You're obviously not effective, not effective either. And so, to determine independence, you say, requires a careful evaluation of a board member's biography, experience, previous behavior, and relation to management. Independence is easy to say, but it's a lot harder to define. And there's some defining moments when all of us find that we have to. We can't satisfy everybody. The eggs are young ones. Okay, operations of the board. In Jamaica, I think, am I right? I think I'm right still by saying most of our chairpersons are outsiders, they're not executive. Which board is presided over by a chairperson. Decisions made by majority rule vote. There's a quorum usually, but at the meeting, it's those who at the meeting are supposed to make decisions. To inform decisions with board on materials prepared by management. Notice they're depending on management. The people are supposed to oversee provide you with materials, so it's both advisory, both collegial and to a certain extent independent. And periodically independent directors meet outside the presence of management, right? In other words, the independent directors will have their own meetings to discuss things outside of executive directors, outside of the ambit, or outside of the independent the executive on the board. Decisions made by majority rule, that means if you're a board member, sometimes you will vote, but you will overrule. It's that important. Depending on the importance of the issue, some board members might decide they cannot proceed. Others may not be that important. But board must both have oversight as well as collegiality among each other, but also with management. Okay. Committees. Increasingly, board committees are important. In other words, a lot of responsibility is left to board committees. So, not all matters are deliberated by the full board. We need a standing that is appointed and operating on a continuous basis, or ad hoc, depending on the issue of hand. For example, a committee might be looking at a particular type of investment, like the ad hoc, and then it will just liquidate itself. But there also is increasingly for standing committees. And here, some of the main ones are shown in the third bullet: audit, compensation, nominating and governing committees. And I wanted to consider what board committees does your organization have, and what are the rules, how often does it meet. And on the important matters, the recommendation of the committee are brought before the full vote of the board. So the committee might consider an issue that they have an opinion on, but they want to needs to have board approval because they serve on such a board. Okay? Let's look at the audit committee. Well, the audit committee, you definitely want to have enough people on the audit committee who understand auditing, accounting, financial reporting, finance, and so forth. Laws, regulations. Oversight of the external auditor, and also the internal auditor, monitor internal auditor processes, oversight of regulatory compliance, including tax payments, oversight of the performance of the internal auditing function, and discuss risk management policies. Some companies will have a risk management committee. They might have dialogue with the audit committee, but often audit has to have some consideration, even if it's a risk management committee, has to have consider risk management issues. Often the external auditors and even internal auditors will not report to the executive CEO, like putting, some people might consider that putting the hen in charge of, the fox in charge of the hen house, but they will report to the board or to the audit committee. Therefore, they will be given a certain amount of independence. So, as you see here, any questions or any points you want to bring up? I'll just go on, you can throw them in. Compensation committee. Worldwide, this is becoming more important with the rise and the controversies over CEO compensations. CEO compensation is not just a compensation issue for companies, it's also an image issue and a corporate brand issue. Does excessive, for example, the question, does excessive executive compensation reduce the value of the corporate brand? Should executive compensation be made public? Or to a large extent, or there should be more transparency? So I just leave that with you there. Let's look at some of the responsibilities that might be considered in a compensation committee. Set the compensation for the CEO, advise the CEO on the compensation for other executive officers, set performance-related goals for the CEO. In other words, they're going to have a incentive compensation. They have to be performance standards that would trigger certain levels of compensation and rewards. Determine the appropriate structure of compensation. Monitor the performance of the CEO relative to targets and hire consultants as necessary. When the question arises, if you're going to hire consultants, that means the compensation committee would have to have a budget. Or to put it even more broadly, the board and the various committees will have to have budgets. Can't hire people without cash, money. So, we go ahead. Nominating and Governance Committee. Identifying qualified individuals to serve on the board. It begs the question again, what qualifies one to be a board member? You're not just thinking about it for this course, but you're thinking about it as a committee member of a board committee member, looking at what are the type of person, what is the criteria, what are the qualities we want in a board member on a committee, various committees. Selection of nominees to be voted on by shareholders, and this can be a very contentious issue, because how do you determine the slate of nominees to be voted on by shareholders? Should we think more widely? Should you think focus just on the usual suspects? It's a big question. I somehow think sometimes we are a little incestuous in choosing our board members. Having more independent and more board members might be not only a breath of fresh air and add a certain vigor to a board meeting, but also get a wider approach, a wider viewpoint, broader viewpoint on issues at hand. Again, hiring consultants is necessary. You need a budget. Determine governance standards for the company. Okay. Manage the board evaluation process. The boards really should be evaluated as well. Shouldn't be just left to the AGM. And manage the CEO evaluation process. So we're asking a lot of this nominating and governance committee. True, very true. Unfortunately, in Jamaica, too many of the same persons sit on too many boards. And I think it does damage. It's not necessarily they're bad board members, but it does damage in two ways. I agree with you, but I'll do the two ways. First of all, you don't get enough new blood and a broader viewpoint. But secondly, they can't do, because they sit on too many boards or they have too much responsibility outside of their executive responsibilities. They do justice to neither. They neither do justice to executives and they do justice to the company their board members of. I take your point, the question is, what you're really saying there is, yes, individual self-interest, or should I say, there are separate agendas than just the agenda of the company, or all the shareholders, or all the stakeholders. And that's a question people will have to deal with as we go forward in this world. It's much better than it used to be, I can tell you that. Because the FSC and the various regulators, as well as the companies, the new Companies Act, given provided it's a little more robust in terms of selection of board members. It's no longer as much of a friend thing, as you say. But I take your point. We still have maybe too much of that. But I hope you people are there to lead the way in the future. Specialized committees. Let me just put up a number of these here. And I'm sure this is by no means all, and it's not to say all of them are used by all board members, or all boards, all companies. Executive Committee, Finance Committee, Corporate Social Responsibility Committee, Strategic Planning Committee, Investment Committee, Risk Environmental Policy. That's probably become more important in Jamaica as we go forward, especially where we're so dependent on tourism and therefore on the environment. Science and technology also going to become increasingly important. Legal, ethics and compliance. You notice they have here, this might be sometimes separated from governance and governance. Mergers and acquisitions, that's a very specialized area. Employee benefits, human resources. So in other words, you can have as long as a committee can be useful, it can be created. The main problem though is once you create organizations or sectors of an organization, it's hard to get rid of them. So sometimes you want to have enough, but you don't want to have too many. Alright. Two main election regimes. Annual election, directors are elected at 1 year terms.